Welcome back to the deep dive. You've brought us a pretty fascinating and, to be honest, a sobering stack of research today.
Hmm.
Our mission is to really unpack this cluster of personality traits that, while they exist on a spectrum in all of us, can be highly predictive of, well, some really destructive
It's
behavior.
socially destructive, yeah.
We are digging into the concept of the dark triad.
Right.
That's a term that psychologists Delroy Paulus and Kevin Williams came up with back in 2002.
That's right.
And this isn't just, theory. This is about recognizing those cold, manipulative styles we can run into anywhere.
Absolutely. In the workplace, relationships, you see it everywhere once you know what to look for.
So what exactly is it?
Well, the triad part is key. It's a
Yeah.
group of 3 personality tendencies. They're distinct, but they overlap a lot.
Okay.
And they share this common core of being socially aversive, they're selfish, manipulative.
Because it's kind of toxic combination.
It is,
Yeah.
but it's also, and this is so important for you, the listener, to remember, it's subclinical. Subclinical, meaning,
We're talking about traits on a scale.
yeah,
Having high tendencies here doesn't automatically mean someone has a clinical disorder. It just means their whole style is geared toward exploitation.
and low empathy.
And very low empathy.
So we have 3 ingredients in this dark cocktail, as you put it.
Yep.
We're talking about narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy. They describe people who just lack that fundamental warmth.
Exactly.
So before we define them one by one, what's the single thread that really connects all 3?
It's that they all serve the self.
Yeah.
Completely. Their shared features are things like low empathy, emotional coldness, and this really transactional view of other people.
Okay.
But the really fascinating part of the research is understanding that while they all exploit others, they run on fundamentally different internal engines.
I love that framing, the different engines. Because if you know what engine someone's running on, you can predict their tactics.
Precisely.
Okay, so let's unpack that. Narcissism is about feeding the ego, seeking admiration.
And psychopathy is more about impulsive, fearless dominance.
Yes.
So where does the third one, Machiavellianism, fit in?
Machiavellianism is the pure strategy engine. It's all about calculated manipulation.
So ego, strategy, and impulsivity. Those are our 3 modes.
You've got it.
Okay, let's start with narcissism. I mean, we hear that word thrown around everywhere these days. But for the dark triad, what are the actual markers?
The core of it is this grandiose, inflated view of themselves. And it's coupled with this intense, constant need for admiration from the outside.
They need validation.
Constantly, they feel entitled to special treatment. They genuinely believe they deserve the status that they have or the one they think they should have.
And we know these people can be really charismatic, at first at least. How does that behavior start to break down?
Well, they're masters of what we call impression management. So they'll exaggerate their achievements, anything to keep that image up.
The ego is fragile.
Incredibly fragile. It's built on sand. So if that image gets threatened, if they get criticized, they can become defensive, aggressive even.
No?
And this is actually a good time to bring up a nuance here. There are really 2 types.
2 types of narcissism.
Yeah. You've got the grandiose narcissist, who is that loud, dominant, arrogant person we usually picture.
Right.
But then there's the vulnerable narcissist, and they're just as entitled, but it's all wrapped up in this insecurity and resentment. They feel like the world hasn't recognized their genius.
That vulnerable type sounds much harder to spot. They're hiding behind a kind of victimhood.
It's a very effective mask.
Okay, let's move on to the strategist, Machiavellianism. If the narcissist needs that external fuel, the Machiavellian seems almost completely self-contained. What's their playbook?
Their key feature is an almost surgical emotional detachment. They have this deeply cynical worldview. They believe everyone is selfish, so manipulating people isn't just okay, it's justified.
So they assume the worst in everyone.
And then they act accordingly. They're incredibly calculating, patient. They're playing the long game.
Not impulsive at all.
The opposite. Unlike the psychopath or the narcissist, the Machiavellian will only use flattery or lies when it serves a practical, strategic goal. They see things like guilt or emotion as weaknesses in others that they can exploit.
The ultimate rational manipulator. And it's named after Niccolo Machiavelli, of course.
Right.
His book, The Prince, was basically a manual on how leaders should use power and, well, manipulation to stay in control. Ethics be damned.
The ends justify the means. That's the entire playbook.
Okay, finally, psychopathy.
Okay.
This one feels the most dangerous. What separates it from the cold strategy or the fragile ego?
With psychopathy, you're looking at a fundamental lack of emotional wiring,
A lack of empathy.
a profound lack of empathy, and no genuine remorse. Their emotional range is shallow. They're impulsive and constantly seeking thrills.
And what does that look like in their behavior?
On the surface, they can be remarkably charming. That's how they draw people in. But they have zero regard for social rules, so they engage in risky, sometimes destructive behaviors. They lie constantly,
Even when they don't have to.
often for no reason at all, other than because they can. That capacity for cruelty without any guilt. That's the defining feature.
And just to bring it back to that spectrum idea, subclinical psychopathy isn't necessarily the criminal from a movie.
Not at all. In the dark triad context, we're talking about people in everyday life who are just ruthless, charming, and have very low empathy. It's that person in the office who's a little too charming and perfectly willing to throw a colleague under the bus to get ahead.
I think we all know someone like that. So now that we have the ingredients, let's talk about why this research is so useful. Where do we apply it?
Oh, its utility is huge. Because these traits are so predictive of, well, really destructive dynamics, understanding the triad helps us decode everything from abusive bosses to online trolling and cyberbullying.
Let's start with relationships.
Yeah.
What does a romantic relationship with someone high in these traits look like?
Typically, they're very short-term. And that's because they see their partners transactionally.
As a resource.
As a resource, exactly. They look for partners they can control or impress, and because of that initial charm, they're often very good at it.
And the tactics they use are sadly familiar to a lot of people. The love bombing at the beginning,
A classic sign.
followed by gaslighting and emotional manipulation once the person is hooked.
That's the pattern. And because of that core lack of remorse, they're much more likely to cheat. And if they're caught, there's no real guilt there. The partner isn't a person. There's something to be managed.
Shelling. Okay, let's shift to the professional world. There's a real paradox here, isn't there? If these traits are so toxic, why do these people so often rise to the top?
It is a paradox, and it's a classic case of short-term gains masking long-term devastation. Well, people high in these traits, especially narcissism and psychopathy, they have this persuasive charm, a ton of confidence, and they're willing to take risks that other people won't.
So in some industries, that looks like leadership potential.
It's often mistaken for dynamic leadership, yes. They look like the perfect choice for the corner office.
But there's a cost.
A huge cost. These corporate psychopaths, as they're sometimes called, they ultimately gut the organization, they create toxic cultures, they engage in unethical behavior, and their decision-making is purely exploitative. They climb fast, but they burn the rope behind them.
So we know they're destructive in the long run, yet we keep falling for the facade. Why? Why does society seem to reward these qualities, at least at first?
It's because the destructive traits often mimic desirable ones. The narcissist doesn't just seem arrogant, they come across as incredibly successful, ambitious. The psychopath doesn't just seem ruthless, they seem fearless, calm under pressure.
And the Machiavellian?
They don't seem cold, they seem strategically brilliant, emotionally grounded.
So they activate our subconscious attraction to things like status and confidence.
Exactly. We confuse that surface confidence with real competence. We mistake strategic ruthlessness for necessary assertiveness.
This brings us to the biggest nuance, and I think this is really important for you listening to grasp. Are these traits always bad? Or can a little bit of them actually be adaptive?
That is the critical question, and the answer is no, they are not always harmful. In low to moderate levels, they can be beneficial, like a kind of psychological armor.
Really? How?
Well, think about it. A mild touch of psychopathy might not lead to crime, but to fearlessness, decisiveness in a crisis, like on a battlefield or a trading floor.
Okay, I can see that.
High narcissism, if it's channeled right, can become incredible ambition and resilience. And a little bit of Machiavellianism, that just means you can think strategically and not get easily taken advantage of yourself.
So the traits themselves aren't the poison, it's the dose.
It's all about the dosage. The danger is when these traits dominate the personality, when they completely overwhelm empathy and conscience. At that point, the drive to serve the self just consumes everything else.
All right, so to summarize our deep dive today, the dark triad gives us a language to describe three powerful, self-serving, and emotionally cold personality traits.
Narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy.
And understanding the difference, whether someone is driven by ego, pure strategy, or impulsive dominance, that's your best tool for navigating these toxic patterns.
I think what really stands out is just how effective all three traits can be at getting power and exploiting people. But that effectiveness comes from completely different wiring.
The different engines.
It's the difference between an engine that runs on praise, one that runs on plotting, and one that runs on simple, fearless indifference.
Which leaves us with a final provocative thought for you to carry with you.
Hmm.
If we acknowledge that low or moderate levels of these dark traits can actually be adaptive, that they can give someone a real advantage in competitive environments like business or politics,
Sure.
are we, as a society, inadvertently selecting for these traits in our leaders? Are we rewarding the very characteristics that we know carry this enormous potential for long-term damage? It's a profound balance to consider.